Hey guys, talk about some trades. I actually had a decent red day yesterday. All my trades failed, but today I had dual long and KTTA short. Dual long, I did not know about crazy China manip. I did not know about that. I did not know that. I knew about crazy China manip. I did not know about the China catalysts of all these China ETFs like KWeb and um, God, what's the other ones like MHIG or whatever the hell it is? Yeah, I mean, China ETF's massive gap up. I always say that sector strength is the best catalyst is like broad sector strength, right? One's like you need broad enough sector strength to overflow into small caps and like shitters like this. This used to happen all the time back in 2020, back in 2021, COVID, EVs, like solar, like everything had its like day. Everything had its like a week long crazy sector strength that would produce these outsized moves. Duo is super interesting. As you see, I totally piked it. I'll explain why. Maybe just go to the chart first instead of the book. There's a chart. Okay. So Duo pre-market structure. Also, this one's for the YouTube peeps. I haven't made a YouTube video in a bit. I feel like, um, when I talk about like a lot of newer edge stuff, like midday longs and kind of hyper analyzing pre-market structures and stuff like that, I've been keeping that with my Patreon, in my Discord. But these, for the YouTube, I will talk about plays that of edge I've talked about before, on the YouTube. So this, fits. I've talked a lot about market open longs on YouTube, right? So this is something I feel fine talking about. So first of all, what was interesting is I was already watching Duo in this structure, and the reason I was watching Duo in this structure is because they had this decent volume pop, but then they had 100,000 share ask at 70 cents holding this down. I'm like, okay, we talked about how extreme bid ask manipulation can give you some indication that some type of aggressive rigging might be coming, right? So a lot of times you'll see like 80k, 100k, 150k ask and bids, and the book makes this a lot more simple. We can actually just go to the book, go to Duo in the pre-market when this was happening, go all the way down here, and you could tell this is the 100 share ask that was holding it down. They actually started to pull this ask, which is also always interesting. If your thesis is they're trying to hold it down for a squeeze later, what do you call it? That could be bullish, right? And then I posted this in my Discord. You're not going to see it here because DX feed on Bookmap does not show ARCA bids, but there was a 200 right as this flag. So the other important aspect of like bid ask manipulation is like where is it happening in the structure, right? Like where this is actually kind of a missed scout move on my part, but it's like where it's not just the fact that 100k bid, 100k ask means you have to make a decision right now. It still depends on volume. It still depends on structure. You know what I mean? You still have to understand that, for example, this is trading very thin volume. Thin volume plays tend to take longer to break out, tend to take, where if you have aggressive market open Momo, you can get like instant reactions, right? So volume and time frame, as you see, we start getting some like sub 10k candles down here. I mean, volume's not thin. That's the other reason why I kind of missed this long. But I took a screenshot right as this candle popped. I shared a screenshot with my Discord. I'm like, they're throwing up a 200,000 share ARCA bid. And then they had like an 80,000 share ask at like 69 cents. That was also on ARCA that got completely filled and they squeezed it, right? So that's interesting. And then you see the big volume come in. And right before market open, I told my Discord, I'm like, this is being walked down in the open, right? It's on like rig stocks, um, especially ones, this is kind of trading near the top of its pre-market range. That is a bearish factor, right? You want to be careful. But one thing that could cause continuation on these stocks that are stronger, showing strength in the open is you get some type of aggressive walk down where they immediately start lower high shoving it down in the open. Now, you know me, I usually do not like to long 9:30 a.m. candles. There's a few situations on super bottomed out plays or super heavily controlled plays that maybe you can form a thesis on a 9:30 long, but usually it's a good idea to watch the book. What does the book look like at market open? And then, specifically, what's the ask bid situation? So here's the ask bid situation, market open, right? So market open comes, they have a bidder here, but they immediately start pushing it, right? And I hate these again, chasing these like straight up market open green candles, right? But this is really nice, right? So we have like a flat support level right here going in the open. Pushes, a sign that it's possibly weak is a lack of bid follow up. And then hyper aggressive support swipe. Always love, love, love seeing hyper aggressive support swipes. And then they did something completely insane, which is they started throwing up 500,000 shares into 300,000 shares into 500,000 shares. And I just went long piece. Like, look at and if I knew about if I had some bigger brain China catalyst thesis on this, like Chinese stocks would go crazy today. Like, this is like honestly A plus. The only thing I want to mention about this is that anytime an overly large bid, and this is a good example of this large bid becomes more relevant because of a support swipe, right? If you don't get a support swipe, say this like did a shallow pullback here, and then a big bid showed up, a little more concerning than seeing an aggressive support swipe, then the bid showing up, right? This is actually one of those counterintuitive things where the more aggressive the weaknesses, the stronger a bullish signal like this is, right? Anyway, an important thing to know, but if you're going to be longing off a huge ass bids or shorting off a big ask or something like that, but especially longing off big bids, you want to see instant reactions. This is literally the exact reaction you want to see, right? If I went long here, because I was already long enough, like I'm going in right away. But what I do is I just stare at my level 2, I stare at the tape, and I make sure that whatever level this bidder came in on, it's not stalling and coming back and attacking that guy, right? Because otherwise I got to make a split-second decision about what I want to do. But I did like the structure. That being said, I sold so much into this push because one thing I was tracking in Bookmap is a lot of times when like a really big bidder initiates a stock, like a massive bidder initiates a stock, a lot of times it squeezes past the liquidity level, which in this case is pre-market high day. But if there's a lack of bidders following that up, it can top relatively fast, with the idea of being, the MM is just using this bid to initiate the liquidity squeeze. There's a lack of bids following it up, and it pulls back down and fades, right? So that was kind of my thesis. I'm like, I'm just going to sell, sell, sell. This is a nice little 20% trade. Whatever, right? But I just, obviously the volume was crazy. Look at the volume. Absolutely fucking insane, right? Look at the increasing consistent volume. And, maybe I could have just trailed on the 1 minute 9. One thing I always tell my Discord, I'm like, if you don't, if you want to, a simple way of holding profits on, especially if you're long on a stock that's increasing volume and squeezing liquidity levels, you could trail on the 1 minute 9 or the 1 minute 20. You kind of wait for the 1 minute 9, 1 minute 20 to catch up, and then look at what the bid situation is on the book. And I even saw this in real time as I was selling. I saw this 80 bidder here, and I was like, and I saw, these bids were getting pulled down here. And I should have did something like, hold on for more. I was already aggressively selling. I actually preemptively thought this was going to crack, and I sold some more, and then it literally just rotated directly off it, and then went crazy. And then I had so little, again, and there was a lack of bid follow-up on this push. I was like, let me just take the rest off. It was only later that I found out it was crazy China manip, so, or that we had a Chinese catalyst today. So, funny enough, we have higher lows. If you want to know my idea of this structure, there's clear higher lows down here. That being said, I kind of posted, this reminds me a bit of MLGO, but it is struggling a lot more than MLGO did midday. Whenever I'm analyzing because first of all, usually these hyper aggressive market open squeezes usually top in this time frame. They usually top in this 10 to 10:30 time frame. Kind of low important note, by the way, on like hyper aggressive parabolic moves like this, a lot of times the first pullback gets attacked for a liquidity squeeze. It's funny that somebody mentioned SMCI fading today, because SMCI did the exact same thing here. Hyper aggressive move, first parabolic pullback, squeezes the parabolic pullback, and actually deep fades. You can actually see the exact same thing happening here just on the daily, because the stocks we trade happen on, on intraday, because stocks we trade happen on 1 minute. SMCI is going to happen on the daily, right? Because of market cap and how it trades, right? But yeah, so kind of the MLGO structure is this like painted lower high, painted low, and then they do this like bigger support swipe and then rotate it back. We see this multiple times. This actually happens a decent amount. It's this structure. Higher, like, and it swipes the lows and like rotates through all the empty space in the lower highs. Something just interesting to know, interesting to pay attention to. Okay, and then yeah, that's Duo. I kind of piked it, but it was honestly still a pretty decent trade. And then I had KTTA, which I shorted. Shorted KTTA. We'll go over why. So I actually took 2 shorts, got stopped out because I thought I was going to get squeezed, and I got back in. But a big thing about this one is if we look at the pre-market structure, one thing I've been talking to my Discord about a lot is I'm like, hey, like anytime for example, anytime a higher low flag on an extended stock has continuation, 2 things are possible. Sometimes that continuation stalls right away. Now, I actually didn't see any like short signal here. If anything, it was just making micro higher highs, micro higher highs, micro higher highs, and then it got walked down. I was like, that's not really. Yeah, I've seen these higher high accumulation patterns, especially if combined with like a quick dump or a walk down, they can rotate. But I was saying, hey, let's not forget how many higher lows are in this structure, right? Because they become relevant. They become relevant after the liquidity move is over, right? And sometimes it tops right away off of a higher low flag, right? Or whatever. Sometimes it keeps continuing, but I consider that a bearish factor. Another thing I consider a bearish factor, which I just mentioned on DUO, is stocks opening up near the top of their range, right? Opening up near the top of the range, have a bunch of higher lows, which is funny. This is one of the, I missed the OCTO. Also, this repeated what OCTO did. I'll show you my losses from yesterday, but this repeated what OCTO did, which is why I was also willing to go back in here right away. Even though a lot of times I avoid going back in trades that I just got stopped out on. But in reality, this risk was just miscalculated. I thought it was going to squeeze through the painted lower highs. And also 7.5 fake half-dollar resistance. I was afraid that was going to happen. But yeah, we'll go over this trade. It's a classic trade. Classic short trade. Let's see. I'm trying to move this. There we go. We'll zoom in really fast here. So yeah, zoom in really fast. By the way, this paint still exists, and there's actually still an empty air pocket that this could rotate into. I'm just hoping it starts to attack these higher lows at 6 here, and it goes down. I already covered a good amount. Anyway, market open. A lot of people in these structures like to short immediately at 9:30. I actually don't blame them. This is like the type of 9:30 short that can actually work, like hyper aggressive higher lows in the open, and it does like a market open high to clear out and pulls. That does happen. It happens a decent amount. I find the volatility to be a little scary in terms of risk management, and also maybe the odds of that working. Like you have to have a really good read on that play. Otherwise, you can really get chopped up. That type of thing. So anyway, I like this entry a lot more. It's hard to see on the 1 minute, but the book is going to show that it did the classic support swipe into initiation off the 1 minute 50. And we'll see right here. This is just a classic low float type of short pattern, right? So I had this big dump, low float stuff, empty space, rotates back into the ask level. But I didn't short this one because I thought the volatility, it was super fast, and I thought the volatility was a little crazy. I usually like the plays where, retail kind of has a chance, where it kind of pulls back and retail has a chance to like size into like a pullback. But this is what I'm talking about. A lot more controlled, right? So you have this like flat bottom right here, right at $7. It swipes 7, and look at this. It swipes 7. It hyper aggressively initiates. And at this point, if you're bearish to structure, this is the exact type of candle you want to make reads on, man. This is like, this is the initiation where the rigger is like executing its liquidity move, right? So this is great. I mean, this is how the best shorts look on the book, especially in low float land, where you're bearish to structure for whatever reason, hyper aggressive push, fills a bunch of ass to the upside, no bid follow up, and then it starts to stall, right? This is great. Of course, when it knifes like that, creates another empty air pocket. And then what you want to pay attention to, we'll go back to this. I was telling this in my Discord. I was like, you want to pay attention to how these lower highs are being painted, right? These lower highs. So these lower highs are being painted right at $7. So this is possible like fake whole dollar resistance. They're making 7 seem heavy, so shorts chase this weakness. So I was saying right before this rotation, I was like, what's really important on this rotation is once it breaks 7, what's the reaction? And then, and I don't just mean reaction of like on the chart. You can use the book. You can use the book for the reaction. So again, and you could use the same concepts, right? You could use the same concept of like aggressive initiation, ask getting filled. What does the book look like higher in terms of ask? And then is there any bid support on the then is there any micro stalling like this, right? Those are bearish things. If you see a bunch of ask getting filled, no bid follow up, stalling on a painted liquidity level, that it's potentially bearish. And then this is what got me scared, because I thought they were holding 6.5, cleared 6.5 higher lows at support. I'm like, okay, 6.5 becomes a target. It should crack through 6.5. That's another aggressive dump move, right? And then they started rotating it back up with bid support. And I was like, oh man, like if this starts rotating through, this level, mid 720s, and it starts attacking these painted lower highs, it could get really scary, right? So I actually got stopped out on the push, but then it did the same thing where it lacked bid follow-up, filled a bunch of ask, and started stalling again. And I also remember OCTO from yesterday, right? How did OCTO top yesterday? On the same type of move, right? Hyper-aggressive down. I'll show you my reads on this were so bad, and they honestly should have been 1,000 times better. A plus short signal on this candle, by the way. We'll go over OCTO in a little bit. But back to KTTA. Anyways, yeah, like I knew they swiped me. It filled, lack of bid follow-up, and then the octave replication. And now when this knifes, look at all the higher lows, man. We got $6 higher lows here. We got 650, 650, 650. All these levels to kind of get attacked. So which is why, it was us covering at the 1 mid 200, covered right on the 6 break. And then, yeah, just kind of holding the rest of the play, see if it wants to fade a little further. But anyway, that's it for today. I'll show you my my losses. I tried OCTO long, and I had the right idea. I just had the wrong execution. That's the problem. I lost twice. This had similar problems where I shouldn't have longed this, and the reason I shouldn't have longed this, again, is the painted higher lows. Not only that, painted higher lows right at $4, right? And again, I usually don't like to see, it had like a mini pre-market curl right here. I don't like to see stocks getting strong going into open for longs, right? I actually want to see stocks be weak, right? I wanted to do what Duo did. This, and then up. That is what Duo did, right? This it had the knife, and I got baited into thinking that this was as low it was going to go, even though it didn't swipe $4. And I understood while going into this, I'm like, oh man, there's higher lows that could get kind of attacked. And in reality, the much better level was first of all sub $4, and B, back into these previous levels from the pre-market. Way better. And there's guys in the room that hit this off, and this is also exactly where the 1 minute 200 was. There was a lot of stuff that was really nice about this. And then I actually thought this was going to like hyper aggressively clear out short trap and rotate back up, and then I got stopped out again. Luckily, I didn't try. Again, but I'll go to the book on. Let me show you the book on this just because it's interesting. OCTO. I got to load yesterday's OCTO for anyone who stayed. The past 20 minutes. I figured the people who stayed this long in a video are also the people most willing to like learn, right? People who are actually most interested in understanding low flow, liquidity traps and stuff like that. Anyway, let's go to OCTO from yesterday. Here's OCTO from yesterday. Okay. Here's the initial bids that I got baited into longing because I thought it was going to rotate through this aggressive down only. But here's that $4 support, right? Clear $4 bidder holding it up becomes a target for any type of. And then here, this is like the classic shit you don't want to see, where what often happens on longs that have bearish factors, for example, like these higher lows, this $4 support paint, right? Is you'll get bids on the pullbacks, but you'll get a lack of bids on these pushes. This is like classic, so you could get baited into the bid support that holds, and you get aggressive initiation, but you start filling ask on the top, it starts to stall. Maybe bids start to get pulled. There's a lack of bids on the push. All this stuff is shit. And then here's that aggressive dip past 4, bouncing off these previous pre-market levels, making some Mikey reads. And then I saw this. I actually saw this in real time. I saw the 80K bidder, and I saw the lack of reaction. It wasn't reacting, and I was like, oh man, maybe this is just weak and it goes down. And then it swiped it, came back up, and they stacked the same bidder again. This is like another 40,000 shares, and then it reacted straight up only. And I'm like, and I even saw this, and I was like, and I saw this one get respected, and it pushed. And then it feels like I'm chasing, right? Then again, after seeing this move, in reality, you could have been making reads off the 1 minute 200 tap and the 380s, right? But now it felt like chasing, didn't want to chase. And this is why I bought this crazy knife back into this kind of like 415 breakout zone. And then the same thing happened where it initially started working, got about 450, but again, pulling bids, filling ask, lack of bid follow-up. It's not great, and I got stopped out. Oh, here's the short, by the way. So anyone who's been following me forever when I used to talk about short selling knows that the closer you get to high day, the better for the long trap, right? Which is why shorting like 440s down here, there's a risk of shorting low 450s, mid high 440s when the high day is at 486 with a big empty air pocket to rotate into. By the way, look at the higher lows. Speaking of higher lows, never forget higher lows, man. This is what I mean. This is why I was also bearish. Same reason I was bearish KTTA. Look how look at how the higher lows are being held throughout this structure, right? Becomes a target for later, becomes a target for the dump. But yeah, this move where it kind of pulls back to the 1 minute 20. By the way, 1 minute 20, not very good on extended stocks, by the way, unless there's some other factors going for it. But anyway, if we look at OCTO at this long trap move, what they actually did here was they threw up 200,000 shares on the bid to initiate the downtrend, the long trap rotation, the bullish rotation. It gets into the 470s. They pull the bid. It starts to stall, has no bid follow up, and that ends up being the top of the move. So I didn't have shares at the time for this play, so I actually just missed it. But yeah, nice little long trap move. And then the other thing I lost money on was MSGM, which I thought, which I'm actually not as mad about MSGM not working on the long side because I thought it was decent. Um, they had this higher low. This was like a higher low VWAP. VWAP was like right here, higher low VWAP crack. Back into this range. The problem is the hyper aggressiveness of the hyper aggressive pushes like this always have the risk of just not having any support when it comes back down. But yeah, I had a nice little long. I liked Mikey calls these the W patterns, where it does. Well, I call it like a second test of support, where it tests it once, bounces, tests it again, and rotates. That was the basic idea behind this big empty air pocket to rotate into. But then I de-risked on this move, this candle, for the same. It's the same candle as KTTA. Support swipe into aggressive push, fills a bunch of ass, lax bid follow up, starts stalling. You could see the stalling go on, and that's actually a short signal. And then I held through the pullback, but once this VWAP rotation here didn't go. Also, this is a fake 1 minute flag, as I call it. I got out, and I'm like, wow, what a shitty day. I caught a small long on whatever that $12 stock was yesterday. I can't remember the fucking name. But that was about it. But anyway, that's my video for today. Hope that was informative. Sorry for lack of cam. You guys have a good one. Join the Patreon. I talk way more in there, post way more stuff in there. Also, the Discord has a lot of stuff. And yeah, and then, I'll try to get YouTube once a week or whatever. So you guys have a good one. See you later.